James sat alone in the emergency room, his hands gripping the edge of the hard plastic chair. The room was filled with the soft hum of machines and the distant murmur of nurses attending to other patients. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Every sound seemed louder, every movement sharper. He glanced at the small jacket he held for his son, Leo, and swallowed hard. The fear in his chest was overwhelming. He had always tried to be strong, but this was different. Earlier that day, James had been working his usual job when he received a frantic call. Leo had been playing outside when a car came too close. The thought of losing his only child had terrified him. He had raced out of the office, dodging traffic, and made his way to the hospital as fast as he could. Every red light felt like it lasted an eternity. When he arrived, the sight of the emergency room only made him feel more helpless. The noise, the people, the urgency of the doctors, all of it pressed down on him. He remembered the moment the nurse had taken Leo away for treatment. James had followed, but there were limits to what he could do. The doctors were focused, moving quickly, and James had been left to wait in a small, sterile room. He sank into a chair and tried to focus on his breathing. Each inhale felt shallow, each exhale heavy. He wanted to be strong for Leo, but he could feel the tears welling up. He had never cried in front of anyone before, and yet, now, the tears rolled freely down his cheeks. James thought about the past few years of his life. Since his wife had passed away, he had been the only parent for Leo. He worked long hours, managed the household, and tried to give his son everything he needed. There were late nights helping with homework and early mornings preparing breakfast. There were moments of laughter and moments of exhaustion. But nothing had prepared him for this fear, this sense of powerlessness. Sitting in the hospital chair, he realized how fragile life could be. The room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of a nearby heart monitor. James's mind replayed the accident over and over. He could see Leo's little legs, the way he had stumbled near the car. He could remember the scream, sharp and high-pitched, that had cut through the air. His stomach churned at the memory. He felt guilty for not being there to protect him. The weight of responsibility and love pressed on his shoulders. He wished he could rewind time, change the day, and keep Leo safe. A nurse passed by and glanced at him briefly, her expression sympathetic but rushed. James didn't respond. He felt invisible and exhausted. The fear made his hands tremble and his chest tighten. He looked at the chair next to him, wishing someone would just sit down and tell him it would be okay. The waiting room felt enormous and empty, though it was filled with people moving around, talking in low voices, and attending to emergencies. James felt the isolation in a room full of people. Suddenly, he felt a presence beside him. He turned slightly and saw a woman sitting quietly. She had an elegant, calm appearance. Her eyes were warm, and there was a softness in her expression. She did not rush him or speak immediately. Instead, she waited, letting him have his moment of fear and grief without intrusion. James felt slightly startled, but also a small sense of relief. Someone was here, someone who cared without needing a reason. After a few moments, the woman spoke gently. "You are not alone," she said softly. Her voice was calm and firm at the same time. James looked at her, his voice caught in his throat. He shook his head slightly, unsure of how to respond. The words were simple, but they carried weight. He realized that she understood the pain and fear that came with being responsible for someone you love. He nodded faintly, feeling a small spark of comfort. "My name is Clara," she continued. "I know this is frightening, but your son is in good hands." James's eyes welled up with tears again. He wanted to speak, but the words would not come. Clara did not press. She simply sat there, giving him space to feel. Her presence alone made a difference. He had spent so long trying to be strong alone that he had forgotten how powerful it could feel to have someone beside you. James finally managed to whisper, "I don't know if I'm enough." His voice was trembling, and he felt ashamed for admitting his fear. Clara reached out, lightly touching his arm in a gesture of understanding. "You are enough," she said firmly. You have done everything you could for your son. Fear does not make you weak. Love does not make you weak. You are strong because you care this much. James swallowed hard, the tightness in his chest easing slightly. He looked at her, really looked at her, and felt an unexpected sense of connection. He did not know her, yet her words reached into his heart. For years, he had faced life's challenges alone. He had been a single dad, a worker, a provider, and now, in this hospital, he realized he could also accept support. Tears continued to roll down his cheeks, but they were no longer only from fear. There was relief in them, too, and hope. Clara smiled faintly, encouraging him without saying more. James took a deep breath, trying to focus on her words. Strength was not about never breaking. Strength was about letting someone be there when you did. That idea felt revolutionary to him. He had always associated strength with self-sufficiency, but now he understood that true courage included opening your heart to trust, even briefly, with a stranger. Minutes passed, and the tension in James's shoulders slowly eased. He sat upright in the chair, gripping his son's jacket less tightly. He was still afraid, but he no longer felt completely alone. Clara's calm presence was a quiet anchor. Her words had reminded him that he could face this fear and still be strong. He realized that it was okay to let someone see him vulnerable, and in doing so, he was not weak. He was human. A doctor appeared at the end of the room, signaling that it was time to check on Leo. James stood quickly, clutching the jacket. His heart still raced, but now it carried a different feeling. It was no longer only panic. It was hope, trust, and the knowledge that he was not entirely alone. He gave Clara a small nod, a silent thank you for sitting with him and sharing her words of understanding. As James followed the doctor to the room where Leo was resting, he felt a renewed determination. He would face whatever came next for his son, knowing he could allow support when needed. Clara remained in the waiting room, a quiet guardian, unseen yet unforgettable. Her words and presence had already changed the way James felt about fear and strength. He understood that courage was not about never breaking. It was about standing up after fear, and allowing light in even when life felt dark. James entered the room and saw Leo lying on the bed, his small face pale but steady. Relief surged through him. He knelt beside his son, taking his hand gently. "I'm here, Leo. Everything will be okay," he whispered. Leo's eyes fluttered open, and he gave a faint smile. James felt tears in his eyes again, but now they were filled with gratitude. He realized that even the darkest moments could be softened by compassion, by presence, and by kindness from unexpected people. He stayed by Leo's side, holding his hand and whispering words of comfort. The fear did not disappear, but it was tempered with hope. He thought about Clara and the simple truth she had shared. Strength was not in never breaking. It was in allowing others to share the burden, even briefly. That lesson would stay with James forever. For now, he would focus on his son, on being present, and on taking each moment as it came. James stayed beside Leo, holding his small hand gently. The boy's eyes opened again, and he gave a weak smile. "Dad," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. James leaned closer and brushed a strand of hair from his son's forehead. "I'm here, buddy. You're safe now," he said softly. Relief and exhaustion washed over him at once. The fear he had carried all day was still there, but it was now mixed with hope. He knew Leo would heal, and he could finally breathe a little easier. The doctor explained the treatments and how Leo's leg would need a cast for several weeks. James listened carefully, nodding at every instruction. He asked questions about pain management and daily care, determined to be prepared. Each answer eased his worries slightly. He realized that panic alone would not help him or his son. Knowledge and planning were tools he could use. As he absorbed the doctor's advice, he felt a sense of control returning. Clara had quietly followed behind, observing from a short distance. She did not interfere, but her presence made James feel steadier. It was strange to him that a stranger could make such a difference in his emotional state. He had been so consumed with fear and loneliness that he had forgotten how meaningful simple human connection could be. Clara's calm energy was grounding, and James silently appreciated it. As the nurse prepared Leo's leg for the cast, James focused on comforting his son. "We'll make it look cool," he said, trying to lighten the mood. Leo gave a small giggle, the first sound of laughter since the accident. James felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Even in pain, his son's spirit remained intact. That thought encouraged him more than any words could. He knew that his love and attention were helping Leo heal, not just physically, but emotionally too. After the cast was applied, James helped Leo sit up on the hospital bed. He gently adjusted the pillows and blankets to make him comfortable. "How does it feel?" James asked. Leo wiggled his toes carefully and gave a small nod. "It's okay," he whispered. James smiled, feeling a surge of pride. His son was brave, and James had been able to stay calm enough to guide him through the process. It reminded him that even in frightening times, courage could be found in small acts. Clara moved a step closer and quietly spoke. "You handled this well," she said. James looked up at her and gave a faint smile. "I had to," he replied. "It's my job to keep him safe." Clara nodded. "And you did. That is what matters. Fear is natural, but you didn't let it control you. That is real strength." James felt a new respect for her understanding. Her words were simple, but they reassured him more than any praise he had ever received before. As the day turned to evening, the hospital began to feel quieter. Patients were being discharged, nurses moved with a slower pace, and the harsh lighting softened. James held Leo's hand and spoke quietly about home, dinner, and favorite toys. Leo listened intently, his eyes half closed with exhaustion. James felt a strange mix of fatigue and gratitude. The worst part of the day had passed, and yet he remained alert, knowing that recovery was a process. Clara remained nearby, sitting in a chair across the room. She did not intrude, but James could feel her calm presence. He realized that her support had been crucial in helping him regain composure earlier. Sometimes, the smallest gestures had the largest impact. Even though they barely knew each other, James felt that he could trust her advice. It reminded him that people could appear in your life at unexpected moments and change the way you handled challenges. Leo began to drift off to sleep, leaning against his father's chest. James stroked his hair gently, careful not to disturb him. He reflected on the day's events. Fear, panic, and helplessness had filled his mind for hours. Yet, through it all, moments of connection and understanding had given him strength. He realized that even in a single father's life, help could appear in forms he never imagined. Clara's quiet presence had reminded him that he did not have to carry every burden alone. When Leo slept peacefully, James leaned back in his chair, finally allowing himself a moment of rest. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly, and his mind began to clear. He thought about what Clara had said earlier. Strength was not in never breaking. It was in letting someone be there when you did. He realized that accepting help did not diminish his role as a father. Instead, it enhanced it. He could still be strong and present while receiving support. A nurse approached to check on Leo. James asked a few more questions about care at home and the schedule for follow-up visits. The nurse gave detailed answers, and James listened carefully. He appreciated being informed and prepared. Knowledge was a form of control, and control helped him manage his fear. The nurse smiled and left, and James continued to sit quietly, his hand resting on Leo's small shoulder. Clara finally spoke again. "Would you like some help preparing for the first few days at home?" she asked. James looked at her, surprised by her offer. I don't know," he said hesitantly. Clara smiled. "It's just a suggestion. Sometimes it helps to have another perspective when caring for someone you love. You don't have to do it alone." James felt a warmth in his chest. He nodded slowly. The idea of support felt comforting rather than intimidating. James began to talk to Clara about his daily routine, work schedule, and how he planned to manage Leo's recovery. Clara listened carefully and offered practical suggestions. James realized that her input was not about taking control but about helping him see solutions he had not considered. Her calm demeanor made it easier for him to plan and organize. He felt his anxiety easing with each word exchanged. As the evening progressed, James felt a sense of calm return. He was still concerned for Leo, but he had regained composure. Clara's guidance and presence had made a significant difference. He reflected on the power of kindness and empathy. Even a simple conversation with someone who understood his fears could change his outlook. He made a silent promise to himself to remember this lesson for future challenges. James looked down at Leo, sleeping peacefully. He whispered softly, "We'll get through this together." The boy shifted slightly in his sleep, and James felt a deep bond between them. He realized that love, patience, and courage were the keys to navigating difficult times. Clara's support had been a reminder that these qualities could be strengthened with connection and understanding from others. Before leaving the hospital, James ensured that all instructions and prescriptions were noted. He checked the bandages and made sure Leo was comfortable in his wheelchair. Clara offered to accompany them to the car, and James accepted. Her presence continued to provide quiet reassurance. Walking through the hospital corridor, James felt a sense of relief and hope. He had faced the fear of losing his child and survived it with calm and courage. Once outside, the evening air felt fresh and comforting. James pushed Leo gently in the wheelchair toward the car. He took a deep breath, appreciating the small moments of normalcy. Clara handed him a small card. "If you need guidance or support, reach out. You don't have to face challenges alone," she said. James smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness. He tucked the card safely into his pocket. As they drove home, James reflected on the day. The accident had been terrifying, but it had also revealed the strength of love and the importance of support. Leo rested quietly, and James felt grateful for every moment he could care for him. He realized that fear was natural, but courage and connection could transform fear into determination. Clara's presence had been a lifeline in a moment of despair. By the time they reached home, James felt more confident. He lifted Leo carefully from the wheelchair and helped him settle on the couch. He prepared a warm drink and some light food, making sure everything was comfortable. Watching Leo eat and rest peacefully, James felt gratitude and relief. The lessons of the day were clear. Strength was not about isolation. It was about love, care, and the courage to accept help when needed. The next morning, James woke early, careful not to wake Leo, who was still resting after the hospital visit. He quietly moved around the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast and making sure all of Leo's medications were ready. Being a single dad meant every detail counted. James knew that the first few days of recovery would be challenging, but he felt more prepared than the previous day. Clara's advice from the hospital echoed in his mind, reminding him to stay calm and organized. Leo stirred and slowly opened his eyes. "Good morning, buddy," James said gently. He helped Leo sit up on the couch and handed him a warm drink. "How's your leg?" James asked, concerned. Leo wiggled his toes carefully and smiled faintly. "It hurts, but I'm okay," he replied. James nodded, feeling a mix of relief and worry. His son's bravery gave him courage, and he realized how important it was to stay positive and patient throughout the recovery process. After breakfast, James helped Leo move to his room, carefully arranging pillows so he could sit comfortably. He checked the cast and ensured it was properly supported. Taking care of his son was exhausting but fulfilling. Each small task reminded him of his responsibility and the love he had for Leo. James felt determined to create a calm environment at home, one where Leo could heal both physically and emotionally. Throughout the morning, James helped Leo with small activities, like reading and drawing. He wanted to keep his son entertained without putting any strain on his leg. Leo laughed quietly at a story James made up about a brave little knight with a broken leg who still managed to save the day. Seeing his son's smile filled James with joy. He realized that moments of happiness, even small ones, were as important as the medical care itself. Clara had called the night before to check on Leo, offering more advice and words of encouragement. James appreciated the gesture deeply. She did not intrude, but her guidance reminded him that he had support beyond his own abilities. Even though he had always been self-reliant, he recognized that connecting with someone who understood his situation made a difference. He felt grateful for her presence in his life. By midday, James noticed that Leo was growing restless. Sitting for long periods was uncomfortable, and the boy fidgeted with his blanket. James decided to help him move to a different position on the couch. He carefully lifted Leo, supporting his leg with pillows. His movements were slow and deliberate, ensuring no additional pain. Leo smiled at his father, appreciating the careful attention. James felt a surge of pride in his son's resilience. While Leo rested, James reflected on the past few days. The accident had shaken him to his core, but it had also shown him the strength he possessed. Fear had been intense, but his love for Leo had guided his actions. Clara's words about strength had been crucial in helping him regain control of his emotions. He realized that being a parent meant facing uncertainty every day, but courage came from persistence and care. In the afternoon, James decided to take Leo outside for a short walk in the garden. The fresh air and sunlight would help lift Leo's spirits. James gently helped him into a wheelchair, making sure the cast was supported. Leo's eyes lit up as he looked around. "It's nice out here," he said quietly. James smiled and pushed the wheelchair slowly along the path. Each moment of joy reminded him that recovery was not only physical but emotional as well. As they moved through the garden, James shared stories of his childhood, of the games he had played and the lessons he had learned. Leo listened intently, occasionally asking questions or laughing softly. James felt a bond strengthen between them. The accident had been frightening, but it had also created moments of closeness and trust. He realized that even difficult experiences could teach love and resilience. Later, James helped Leo back inside and prepared a light snack. He ensured Leo's comfort and checked that the cast remained secure. Caring for his son was a constant balance of attention and patience. Each small task, from adjusting pillows to preparing food, reminded James of his responsibility and devotion. He felt pride in the way he managed everything with care and attention, even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. In the evening, James received a text from Clara. She asked how Leo was doing and offered additional tips for recovery activities. James responded with gratitude, explaining how well Leo was adjusting. Clara's guidance remained supportive but unobtrusive. James reflected on how much it meant to have someone who cared without judgment. He realized that accepting help was not a weakness but a strength, a lesson he would carry forward. As night approached, James helped Leo settle into bed. He adjusted the pillows and blankets, making sure his son was comfortable. "I'll stay with you for a while," he said. Leo nodded, his eyelids growing heavy. James held his hand gently, offering comfort. He thought about the day's events and felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Despite the challenges, he had managed to care for his son and provide stability during a frightening time. After ensuring Leo was asleep, James quietly moved to the living room. He sat on the couch and reflected on everything that had happened. Fear, panic, and exhaustion had been overwhelming, but they had also revealed the depth of his love and determination. He thought about Clara and her calm presence in the hospital. Her support had reminded him that he did not have to face every challenge alone. This realization brought him peace. James made a plan for the following day. He would continue helping Leo with daily activities, check on his medications, and ensure he had comfortable positions throughout the day. Planning provided a sense of control and reduced anxiety. He understood that recovery was a gradual process and that patience was key. Each small step counted, and he felt ready to face whatever challenges might come. Before going to bed, James walked quietly to Leo's room and watched his son sleep. The little boy looked peaceful despite the injury. James felt a wave of gratitude and love. He understood that being a parent was not about perfection. It was about presence, care, and patience. He realized that the accident had taught him lessons about strength, compassion, and connection that would stay with him forever. James returned to the living room and sat down, reflecting on the journey so far. The day had been filled with challenges, but also small victories. Leo's resilience, his own growing patience, and the support from Clara had made a difference. He felt more confident in his role as a father. Fear had been replaced by determination and hope, and he knew that they would continue to heal together, one day at a time. The next morning, James woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. He looked over at Leo, still asleep, and smiled softly. The little boy's breathing was calm, and the cast on his leg looked secure. James felt a sense of relief and gratitude. The past few days had been difficult, but they were slowly settling into a new routine. Today, he would help Leo with more gentle activities to keep his mind occupied and his spirits high. After preparing a simple breakfast, James woke Leo gently. "Time to eat, buddy," he said with a warm smile. Leo sat up carefully, and James handed him a cup of juice. "How does your leg feel?" James asked. Leo wiggled his toes in the cast and nodded. "Better than yesterday," he said. James felt a small surge of pride. Every day was a step forward, and seeing Leo adapt gave him hope. He knew that patience and care would guide the recovery. Once breakfast was finished, James helped Leo into a chair by the window. He had prepared coloring books and puzzles to keep him engaged without straining his leg. Leo smiled as he picked up crayons, and James watched him with quiet pride. Moments like these reminded James that recovery was not only physical. Keeping Leo happy, entertained, and emotionally strong was equally important. As the morning progressed, James thought about how far they had come since the accident. The fear and panic he had felt in the hospital seemed distant now, replaced with calm determination. He remembered Clara's words about strength and letting others help. He realized that support could come in many forms, and accepting it made him stronger as a parent. Even a small act of kindness had the power to change a difficult day. Around midday, James helped Leo stretch his arms and move carefully in the chair. He guided him through small exercises recommended by the doctor to maintain circulation and flexibility. Leo followed his father's instructions diligently. James felt proud of his son's courage and focus. He knew the journey would be slow, but each small accomplishment built confidence for both of them. Later, James prepared a light lunch for Leo and himself. He made sandwiches and fruit, keeping everything simple and easy to eat. Leo ate slowly, but he seemed content. James reminded him to rest between bites, carefully observing any signs of discomfort. Each step was part of the process. Being attentive and patient helped James feel in control, and he appreciated how much he could do to make Leo comfortable. After lunch, James suggested they spend some time in the garden. The fresh air would be good for Leo's mood, and it was a gentle way to introduce light movement. James carefully helped him into the wheelchair and rolled him along the path. Leo's eyes lit up at the flowers and the sunlight. "It's beautiful, Dad," he said. James smiled, grateful for these peaceful moments. They reminded him that life could still hold simple joys, even after a frightening accident. Clara called in the afternoon, checking in on Leo's progress. James updated her about the morning activities and the exercises they had done. Clara's tone was warm and encouraging. "You are doing an excellent job," she said. James felt a sense of reassurance. Even though she was not physically there, her guidance continued to provide comfort. He realized that support could come from different places and take many forms. As the day continued, James noticed Leo's attention beginning to wane. He decided it was time to rest. He helped Leo back into bed, making sure the pillows were comfortable and the cast was secure. "Sleep for a while, buddy," James said softly. Leo's eyelids closed, and he began to breathe steadily. James watched him, feeling grateful for the quiet moment. Caring for Leo required constant attention, but it also gave him a sense of purpose and connection. While Leo slept, James reflected on the past week. The accident had tested him in ways he had never imagined. Fear, helplessness, and exhaustion had filled every moment. Yet, he had discovered new reserves of strength. Clara's presence in the hospital had shown him the value of kindness and empathy. Her words and support reminded him that he could face challenges without carrying the burden entirely alone. By late afternoon, James helped Leo wake up gently. "Feeling better?" he asked. Leo nodded and smiled faintly. James assisted him with a light snack and guided him through a few more gentle exercises. They practiced small movements to ensure the leg remained stable. Each step was carefully monitored. James remained patient and attentive, understanding that progress, no matter how small, was a victory. In the evening, James prepared dinner while Leo relaxed in the living room. He kept the meal simple but nutritious, focusing on foods that would give energy and support healing. As he cooked, James thought about how much he had learned in just a few days. Patience, observation, and steady support were as important as medical care. He realized that love could guide him through even the most difficult moments. After dinner, James helped Leo into his pajamas and settled him in bed. He read a story to his son, using a soft voice and gentle gestures. Leo listened intently, occasionally asking questions about the characters. James responded carefully, enjoying the calm interaction. These moments reminded him that recovery was not just physical healing but also emotional stability. He wanted Leo to feel safe, loved, and supported every step of the way. Later, James sat beside Leo's bed, holding his hand and watching him drift off to sleep. The day had been long, but progress had been made. The fear and panic from the hospital felt more distant, replaced by hope and resilience. James understood that his role as a father went beyond protection. It was about guidance, care, and emotional support. Each gentle touch and comforting word mattered. Before heading to his own room, James checked the medications and ensured everything was prepared for the night. He reflected on how far they had come in such a short time. Leo was healing, and James had grown stronger as a parent. He felt grateful for Clara's support and advice, which had been instrumental in regaining calm and confidence. He understood that support could appear in unexpected ways and that accepting it was a form of courage. As James prepared for bed, he quietly whispered to Leo, "Tomorrow will be another good day." He felt a sense of peace settle in his heart. The past week had tested him, but it had also shown him the depth of his love, patience, and resilience. He had learned that strength was not in never breaking but in standing up each day, providing care, and allowing moments of support when needed. James lay down in his bed, exhausted but content. He reflected on the lessons of the week. Fear and uncertainty were natural, but courage, patience, and love guided him through the challenges. He thought about the future and how he would continue to care for Leo with compassion and determination. Clara's words remained in his mind, reminding him that even the strongest people could accept help and find strength in connection. The night was calm, and James felt a quiet confidence that tomorrow would bring more progress. Leo would continue to heal, and together they would face every challenge with patience and love. James realized that being a single father was difficult, but it was also a journey filled with small victories, lessons, and moments of joy. He closed his eyes, ready to face the days ahead, knowing that hope, love, and support were always within reach.